This is the Dallas Morning News.
This episode is from an independent podcast hosted by the Dallas Morning News Opinion Team.
Kyle, you're going to listen to a lot of drive and commitment. Ray Washburne, who has clearly been a success in so many different businesses, but I think what I took away more than anything else was that drive and the commitment, not only business, but the community. And while some people have that, they usually don't match it with the insightfulness and the thought process that make a difference. You've seen it in his career, you've seen it locally in his work here in Dallas, but you also saw it nationally too.
He should be on the Dallas poster board. I think he's the central figure as I think about really the next 10 to 15 years of Dallas and especially the urban core. We get deep into that and kind of his acquisitions down there. We also go into Highland Park Village and the history of that going back to the early Mikasina days. Really insightful and someone who's passionate about what he does day in, day out.
You may need a scorecard to keep that because we talked about what you need to do in Dallas to transform that in the next 10 years. We also got into the dynamics of how you change a large real estate development like Highland Park Village, which is now one of the most successful in the nation.
Well, and then we discussed Sunoco, Red Lobster, and his time at OPEC. I mean, it's really a broad conversation. I think the listeners are going to really enjoy it.
And that was all in an hour and 10 minutes?
Yeah. Tune in. Welcome to Intersections, where we take a multi-generational look at the critical issues facing America. Tom, introduce our guest.
Ray Washburne, good friend, well-known in the Dallas community and well beyond that too. And probably multifaceted is the best description. Involved in real estate, involved in restaurants, the founder of the M Crowd in Mikasina, those sorts of things, served in the administration as the chairman of OPEC, and in addition to that, been a real involved individual within the community, a philanthropist, and very much involved in some SMU aspects too. So, Ray, good to have you with us.
Good, thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay, I'm tired of the text that I've received. Tell us about the Halloween costume.
Yeah, what are you going to be this year? I hear it revolves around beer. That's what I hear.
Yeah, well, I just got back from Oktoberfest in Munich, so I look pretty good in lederhosen, actually. And so what we found over there, you walk in, if you're not wearing lederhosen in Munich, you look way out of place. So anyway, I took it off before I got back on the plane to fly home.
So are we seeing that in 3 weeks? Is that coming for Halloween this year?
Yeah, I got to get invited to a party first. So yeah.
We'll help you do that.
Yeah.
We'll help you do that. So grew up in Dallas.
Yes.
Went to SMU. Give us kind of a feel of that early stage of career. As I said, you've become the true entrepreneur in several different areas, lots of different pieces.
Yeah.
How did you get into that? What was kind of the mindset through school at Highland Park and then SMU, and then really kind of beyond that to get in so many different areas?
Sure. Well, look, I was blessed to be born in Dallas. I was born here in 1960. I got to see Dallas explode through my youth, through the 60s and 70s, 80s, and on. But my father's a banker in Dallas, and he was very much of a 9-to-5 banker down at Republic Bank. And I just always had the entrepreneurial spirit. And if you live in Dallas, you're infused with this because everyone you're around is an entrepreneur of some. I mean, the block I grew up on in Highland Park, every dad was in a different business. One was in construction, and another guy was a developer, a car dealer, just on and on and on. And so, of course, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. That's the way I was raised. And I started a newspaper when I was 10 years old in our neighborhood called the Aardvark. And I had about 200 subscribers, and I sold it door to door, had all the kids in the neighborhood write stories in exchange for a popsicle or a Coke. And it was about 4 or 5 pages. And if you see people that I grew up with in Highland Park around that age, they all remember that newspaper. I still have copies of it. And
that's great.
They're all writers. And so I started with that, and then I started a lawn mowing business. So I basically have done it since, the very beginning.
But first job out of school was a construction company.
Well, actually, yes. I went to work. I was in Boy Scouts, I was an Eagle Scout, and I was on a backpacking trip with a guy named Bill Solomon, who is chairman, and his family at the time owned Austin Industries. This is 1982, 83. And he and I would talk every night around the campfire. We spent 10 days camping. And at the time had gotten my real estate license in high school, and I'd bought a house. He was fascinated that this, 19, 20-year-old was doing all this stuff. And he grabbed me when we got back. So would you go to breakfast with me when we got back from the camp out here? I mean, here's a CEO of this big company. I was like, sure. And he goes, well, I want to hire you to come work in Austin Industries. And I'm like, well, I'm a history and English major. I haven't taken any business classes because I'm in business already. So I didn't feel like I want to get a big perspective of life and not a honed in one. And he said, well, I want to get you here because we need to infuse in Austin Industries, which at the time was mainly a bridge builder, highway construction. They were doing some office buildings. They just started the new, at the time, the InterFirst Tower. But we need some entrepreneurship mindset here. So he said, okay. So he hired me, and I was still doing all my stuff on the side. But I went in and I worked directly for the CFO, and they wanted to start. So he asked me to go around and start meeting developers on how could we get involved in the development business or somehow, because contractors at the time were just purely a GC. New contractors are coming to Dallas, and they were actually partnering up with developers. So I spent the first year just going around to every developer in town, whether they were building subdivisions or so. My network was massive. Here's this 23-year-old, but I had Bill Solomon standing behind me, and they all knew I was kind of not chief of staff. It was more of a just get out there. And I'd go in these meetings, and that's back in the day. You'd go in a conference room, they'd close the door, and everyone was smoking. Unbelievable. Big ashtrays in the middle of every table. Everyone wore coat and tie with short sleeve shirts and pocket protectors. And here was this kid from SMU, and they were going, we need to go talk to this guy. And, I was living a little bit more glamorous life than a lot of those guys. And so he was just trying to infuse, which look, as a mentor and as a leadership thing, it really showed me, change is coming, and to be in change, sometimes you got to get youth in there to kind of infuse it with that.
So what'd you learn those first couple of years? What were your biggest takeaways in being in that role?
Well, I was always an entrepreneur doing on my own. I really learned big corporate structure and planning, committees, and I learned a lot of what I didn't want to be part of, which was slow moving stuff. But I also learned a lot on how you could move quickly if you wanted to. And in Austin, I was in kind of this new youth group they were bringing in that were kind of the new, let's move faster and get away. Because, when the company had been around since the 1920s, building bridges over the Red River, and might have been older than that. It might have been in the teens when it started. And they were just trying to redirect, and so I think I learned that. And I guess trends from that, and we can talk about it in a bit on what I look at. And when I look at real estate deals or restaurants, or I look at trends, kind of try to look around the corner. And that's kind of what, at the time with Austin, Bill, I don't know if he realized it or not, but he was trying to look around the corner away from what was a traditional business. He and I have actually never talked about that since then.
In the introduction, I mentioned a couple of things, but you've got three big pieces that are sitting out there right now. The restaurant group and variety of different restaurants. Right. You've got the real estate development, several different projects here as well as in other places.
Right.
And then also chairman of Sunoco, the largest retailer in the nation, largest gasoline retailer. So take those three for just a second.
Okay.
And do compare and contrast, because you'd think those three, the relationship would be very minimal between the three. But yet, you've been very successful at all three.
Yeah, none of them interconnect at all, which makes it interesting because I'm too ADD to be stuck in one silo. But if you unpack the box, okay, we'll start with restaurants. People ask, why did I get in the restaurant business? I was young and naive. I had no idea. That's why I got into it. I wouldn't recommend anybody go into it. And they said, but you've been so successful in it with all these restaurant stuff. Well, it was 1991, and I had a guy, and I started with a guy named Michael Rodriguez, whose family owned Mia's, and the original Mi Casino was at Preston Forest. This is where the young and naive comes in. He said we could open that for $25,000. I believed him. Okay, got in there after $25,000. We need another $25,000. So I called my best friend Bob McNutt, who lives in Corsicana, and he put in $25,000. Then he came back and said, I need another $25,000. So I got my brother Dick in there, and we opened it for $77,000. That one restaurant is still there today and does, it'll do $5-6 million a year in sales and incredibly profitable. I mean, that one store has been there 35 years. We probably made profits of $30 to $40 million out of that one store.
So what's the secret in the restaurant business?
Secret in the restaurant business, well, one is, I was speaking earlier, they're trends. What we saw at Mi Casino, and I really put this on Mico Rodriguez, the first Mi Casino was your traditional Mexican restaurant. Plastic cups, paper napkins, plastic plates, all those things. And when we got the chance to do the Highland Park Village, which is number 2, it was like, let's take this experience and upscale it. Let's serve enchiladas on china. Let's have 100% cotton napkins. Let's get away from beer boxes and Christmas tree lights and make it elegant. Your basic Mexican food in an elegant environment.
So go at it in a different way.
And it took off. And so the key to it is you have so many people, chefs start restaurants and they serve what they want you to eat, like what the chef likes. I ate at a restaurant last night. I won't say which one. And the chef came over and started explaining the menu. And I told my wife, I go, I'm never coming here again. Because he was real excited about it. He was serving it. That's not what I wanted to eat. That's why the most successful restaurants you see, whether it's a Bob's Chop House or Al Bernays, they're serving what the customer wants to eat. And how many restaurants do you go to that are fancy snatchy and you get in there, you're like, I'm never going back. So
what are your favorite ones that aren't Ray Washburne ones?
In Dallas?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a partner in 65 restaurants in Dallas. Everything from the KDHL Ice House, the Biblique to Hudson House. I'm a partner in all that stuff. So
you've taken away most of the competition.
Yeah, invested in different ones to see. I'm not a partner in Bob's or Al Bernays. I like both those places. Yep. Just your I tell you, my favorite one, if I had to go out one night and pick, it would be Louie's on Henderson, because I love the pizza and it's been there for 40 years and it's down and dirty. Have you ever been to Louie's?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love it. I get it every Sunday night. We get it to go.
So you talked about trends, restaurant business. Yeah. What does this look like in 5 years? Well, how is it going to change? Because not only the restaurants you own, but you're also on the board of Red Lobster, large franchise, downscale,
not franchise,
not franchise, but large number of stores. And
here's what's happening: the restaurant business is no different than banks or other retail and stuff. You're either big or you're small. There's no in between. So if I have 1 or 2 restaurants, that's fine. You send, your kids up to Costco to buy the meat or the silverware and stuff like that. You can keep small. Once you get up to 3 or 4, all of a sudden you need a CFO, and the overhead starts to eat you alive. If you're a big enough scale, you can hire, like Mikasina, M Crowd, I've got my corporate offices, 30 people or so. We have so I have procurement, I have IT, I have all those things. Anyone I've seen that have tried to grow, there's a death valley in the restaurant business. And you can and that I advise a lot of young people on this. They'll get a successful 1 or 2, and they go, we're going to build 4, 5, or 6. They almost always blow up because the overhead sinks the operation. So the trends in the industry, you have to be so well capitalized, but you have to race to grow to size. Or you do something like in Fort Worth, you got a Joe T. Garcia's, one location, make a ton of money. Yeah. If those guys wanted to open 3 or 4 more, they'd probably blow up.
Yeah. Now, it used to be that the restaurant business was about an 85, 90% failure. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I would say so. And in the case of something like a Red Lobster, I'll go to casual dining. The cost to build a restaurant today, from a ground up, you're spending $4 or $5 million. You have to have top line sales, let's say of $5 to $6 million, if you want to make 15%. So if you spend, simple math, let's say $4 million to build a restaurant, right? That means you're making $600,000 to $700,000 a year. Well, is that a good return on investment for your dollar? It wasn't spending $75,000 like Mikasina did originally. Right. So what you see is, in our case, if you can't get that high enough top line, you can't justify it. And so what you're seeing in the suburbs right now, like an Apple, Chili's is an amazing store. You should get their CEO on. They are one of the few but look how many have blown up and gone away. Fridays, Bennigan's, Steak and you just go on down the list.
Well, if you look at restaurant sales right now, it's gone down significantly. A lot of restaurants are in trouble at this point in time.
Well, sales are flat across the industry, So you take flat sales with rising labor costs, rising occupancy cost, it's eating margin away from people, and liquor sales are going down. The young people in this country are not drinking anywhere near what previous generations
Talk about that. And they're drinking differently too.
Yeah, they're drinking things like White Claw, already produced stuff. And they're coming already, a couple into it before they show up at their restaurants. And the gummy bear, all that BS. You see that, and because they don't want to go in, they don't want to spend the money on the drinks. So they're already tagging it before they show up.
So talk about the different types of profile of an eater at your restaurant. So Mi Casina, Highland Park Village, you got a different clientele than you got a Red Lobster. How do y'all think about that from a brand perspective and push that?
So Red Lobster, I'm on the board. Fortress is the majority owner. We own 100% of Mi Casina. So, it's a totally different customer set on that. What happened on the Red Lobster, it went into bankruptcy because they had an all-you-can-eat shrimp special that in about a month bankrupt the whole company because Wall Street Journal has a huge article about it. And so that went into bankruptcy. They shut down 300 or 400 stores. There's still 650 or so, 700. That customer it's a special occasion restaurant in Wichita, Kansas. It's a special occasion restaurant in Lake Charles, Louisiana. You go to the suburbs of big cities, you have too many choices to have. So, but to grow that brand, the cost of the box versus the return on sales is very, very difficult. The best restaurants in our industry today are Chili's and Texas Roadhouse. Drive by any Texas Roadhouse, they cry. And you look, both their stocks are both unbelievable.
What makes Texas Roadhouse, what makes their menu special?
Very simple. They go to secondary cities. They'll go to a Colorado Springs or a Waxahachie, and that is the special occasion restaurant there. And they're
So you got Mi Casina, you've got Red Lobster. What has been your reaction to see the Cracker Barrel blow up over the course of the last 3 or 4 months as somebody that's in the restaurant business, really both sides, experienced and successful?
Well, for one thing, their concept is very challenged right now because it's a brunch kind of concept. People are eating a lot less breakfast today, and they were selling a lot of the knickknacks in the deal on the side of the highway. And so the whole thing on that whole logo deal, that's kind of shocking how much of a blowback they got on it, but they didn't focus group check that. It's something that's, if we were going to get rid of the Red Lobster with the claws, I'm sure we'd focus group that before we did that.
I'll use this a bridge to jump into the real estate.
Yeah.
But we get to it, and we're going to get to it in a lot of your businesses. You've got an economy that on the top side, the top 10% is what people talk about, is doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You look at kind of the middle of this population across the country. Wages have been flat. We've talked about that with Rob Kaplan over the course of the last 40 years or so. How do you look at the two different economies that we've got and relative to your businesses?
Well, it's a K-shaped economy. You've got top end, the wealthy, at the bottom end, the poorest, and in between, it's the middle class. It's tough right now. A lot of these people have 3% mortgages. What happens when those things reset? The people aren't selling homes. Look at home sales right now. They can't sell because of the interest rate, adjustment they're going to get whacked with. And so it's tough right now. I don't know what AI is going to do. I don't know how much that's going to annihilate a lot of, middle-class jobs that are in claims processing and things like paralegals at law firms.
Are you worried about the economy in the next 5 years or so?
Well, I tell you, I had an interesting, you guys know who Charlie Munger is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. About 12 years ago, Charlie Munger calls me. Can't believe it. My secretary goes, Charlie Munger's on your phone. I'm like, really? I thought my friends were messing with me. So anyway, I got on the phone and I said,
and Charlie Munger is
Warren Buffett's best friend and partner. Who passed away about a year ago. And he's in his 90s, and he called me up and said, Mr. Washburne, this is Charlie Munger here. And I said, yes, sir. He goes, do you think I could come visit with you, sir? I've got some business questions for you. I'm like, what? I go, sure. I go, when? He goes, will next Tuesday work for you? I said, well, let me think about it. Yeah, it works. So he shows up in the Highland Park Village the next Tuesday with an entourage of 4 or 5 people and comes in my office. And sure enough, big, thick glasses. It's the real Charlie Munger. And so he shows up and he goes, could you take me for a tour of the Highland Park Village? So I take him for a tour and walk around. And then he goes, I go, can I take you to Mi Casina for lunch? He goes, sure. And so we go in there, have lunch, and it's about 2:00, 2:30. And he goes, okay, Mr. Washburne, thank you. He just absolutely bled me for everything I knew about luxury retail and everything like that. I go, why, Mr. Munger, if you don't mind my asking, why are you here? And he goes, I'm the largest shareholder of Costco, and I've been on the board since they started. And he goes, now this is like 12, 13 years ago. This shows what a forward thinker that guy was. He goes, I think there are going to be 2 economies. The high-end luxury, which you are, and the low end, which Costco is. And there will be nothing in between.
Wow.
And I understand the Costco area. I don't understand luxury retail. So he goes, I'm flying from here to Miami to go to Shops at Bell Harbor, which is the Highland Park Village equivalent there. Americana Manhasset in Long Island. He was flying around the country to meet with the 5 or 6 highest luxury centers in the country. That's when I kind of clued in to like, okay, this guy's onto something. Since then, a brand like The Gap, which used to have a store in every mall in the city, is down to like 2 stores. It's basically you go trade in a pair of jeans you got online that didn't fit and trade in and out. That whole market, annihilated. The high end, I mean, we're just doing spectacular centers around the country. And I own shopping centers in Oak Cliff, like at Hampton, Illinois, Westmoreland, and Hampton. All my centers are doing great in that area.
Why?
Well, that consumer doesn't buy online. They're afraid of getting stuff ripped off, I think, on their front porch if stuff gets delivered. And a lot of reasons, they're showing up, and that is part of their family experience is actually driving to the shopping center, going in the grocery store, and walking, around. I think that's part of the entertainment value in that area. But my centers are all 100% full, and that's the lowest income. So I got it the very highest in Dallas and the very lowest, and both are doing great.
Seeing both sides.
But I'm not out in Plano.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you talked about Highland Park Village, so let's go
dive
there.
in.
Round forever, great reputation, ideal location within the Dallas area, given the demographics around it. Walk us through, not today, but how you came to acquire that and what you saw that clearly nobody else did.
Okay, well, the Highland Park Village was built in 1931. It's the oldest shopping center in the United States. I grew up in Highland Park, so I grew up going there. And the whole time, I went to SMU. In 4 years at SMU, I never once went to Highland Park Village. There's no reason to go there back then. They had a little dumpy Mexican restaurant and a tea room, and that was kind of it. I mean, there's no Starbucks, nothing like that. So I opened Mi Casina there in February 1993. That was our second store, as I said. That kind of propelled it along. I mean, Henry Miller, who bought it, this is a crazy number. He bought it in 1976 from the Republic National Bank for $5 million. Okay? $5 million. People miss, he had to buy all the houses on the north side of Mockingbird and tear them down for parking and stuff like that. But average rent was $4 a foot, 1976. And I don't know if you remember Harold's, the women's store.
Wait till we hear what it is.
I know. What it is today?
No, let him finish the story. But keep in your mind, everyone, what the number is.
$4 a foot. So Harold's, which is a women's brand who opened up there, I called Becky Casey, who started it and put it there in 1977. I was in high school. I asked her, what was the rent? She goes, we rented 600 feet, $7 a foot, and we didn't think we were going to make it. Okay? Look how far things have come. So fast forward to 93, I got the Millers wanted something to inject the village. They already had Hermes there, but other than that, they had an old bombed out Tom Thumb and really not very nice tenants. And so we went in there. I think I paid $18 a foot, $20 a foot for that Mi Casina spot. They wouldn't put any money into it. So I had to put all the renovation money into it. Now that was problem number one. The previous owner would not put any capital cost into it.
So you're just leasing from Mi Casina at this point?
Leasing there.
Yeah, just leasing. Yep.
So go from 93 until 2008. Okay. So now I've been the tenant there for, what is that?
15 years?
15 years. And very successful. So one night, my wife and I go up, and we never just go by ourselves to Mi Casina, but the Christmas tree lights had just gone up. Okay, this is like December 1st or 2nd. 2008. Remember, economic crisis in the country. The whole world is crashing down. So I went and we were eating dinner, and one of my waiters came up to him, and they call me El Jefe. You know what that means, you know. So they come up, they go, El Jefe, guy over here, that group of guys over there saying they're going to buy the Highland Park Village. And I go, there's no way. It'd be like Jerry Jones selling the Cowboys. You don't even ask because they're not going to be for sale, right? So I look over at these guys, and they're a bunch of New York-looking guys, and I was like, interesting. And just then, and I believe God's got his hand in everything, Henry Miller walks by my table right after the guy told me this. And he's carrying a Mi Casina to-go bag. And he stops by, he says hello, and I said, Henry, are you selling the village? And he turned white as a sheet, put the bag down, he goes, what are you talking about? I go, I heard it's for sale. He goes, well, why are you saying that? And I said, well, I've been going through your trash. I've been reading these letters. I'm kidding, of course. And he goes, what? And he goes, well, I hear some guys in this restaurant are buying it. And he looks around and he looks back. He goes, call me tomorrow at 5:00. He walks out. So I'm like, okay, there's something happening
What did you
here.
think was happening?
Well, I thought he was selling to that group of guys at the table. But I figured by 5 o'clock tomorrow, what it probably meant was it was under contract and he couldn't talk about it, but it went out of contract the next day if they didn't go hard. So next day I called him at 5 o'clock and he said, how quick can you get to my office? He was in West Village at the time. So I sped over there and he just said, yeah, we're selling it. I go, what do you want for it? And he gave me this price. And I kind of looked at him and I go, God, I don't know about that. He goes, well, how about this price? And it was a much lower price.
So he's negotiating against himself.
Yeah. So anyway, it worked down. We ended up, I paid, it was in the paper, $162 million. And these other guys had her in contract for $215. What had happened?
And they were in contract at that point.
They were until I showed up at the office. They went out of contract at 5 o'clock because they were supposed to go hard. Apparently, they had gotten under contract the previous summer and had worked the family over all fall. Remember, the economy's Bear Stearns, Lehman, all that stuff is going down. And so they were like, okay, we need out. I mean, everyone thought the world was ending, right? But I'm like, I got a chance in the Highland Park Village.
Why not?
And one thing I knew was I was at that time paying $32 a foot, but with percentage rent and retail, you pay generally 6% of your sales. I was paying in the 50s a foot with percentage rent. And I knew some sales, a couple other tenants, Tory Burch, and they were all in the 50, 60, $70 a foot with percent. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, well, why aren't they charging? If they'd asked me to pay $50 a foot, I would have not even thought about it. But they weren't doing it because they weren't giving tenants tenant finish dollars. And so we'll cut you cheaper rent. Well, that affected the NOI, which affected the ultimate value. Follow me? So we agreed, shook hands. That was like December 5th or 6th. Okay. And this is where the story gets interesting. I get it hard under contract, go to the spring. The world continues to melt down. And for the younger listeners, go back and look in 2009. The world was ending. Companies, banks are failing all worldwide. It's not a U.S. problem. It's a worldwide problem. So, but I'm determined I'm going to buy it.
Perspective at that time, stock market's tanking and the liquidity in the economy is a real question. Fed jumps in just to keep everything liquid.
So I hired HFF, which is now JLL, to go out and source debt for me. So they couldn't find a single U.S. lender. They finally came back with a bank from Germany called, I won't say the name, and they agreed to finance it for me. So everything's done. I spent a bunch of money on, their due diligence stuff. We're going to close May 1st. So I'd gone through all the due diligence. I went to Rangers opening day game. I think it was April 5th or something. And I'm driving back from the game. I'll never forget. I'm right across from that smelly dump or the sewage treatment plant on 30, car full of kids. My phone rings and the guy at HFF, I answered and I was like, hey, what's up? He goes, you're not going to believe this. They've declined the loan. I said, well, I've already put up hundreds of thousands of stuff. He goes, first, it's a 500-year-old bank. First time in the 500-year history of the bank. Yeah. It got to the CEO and he turned it down, but they're turning down everything. And he goes, there's not another lender in this anywhere we can find to lend you $5 on this. The whole world. Okay.
Give us a sense, kind of what percentage round numbers of equity were you willing to put in?
Well, on that deal, I was going to put down 30%, so $40 million. So substantial.
That's big money.
So this is our family buying it. It wasn't a fund or anything else. And so I get in the car, I start driving back. I'm like, okay, this is the optimist. You have to be in business. Like, okay, I want to make it happen. I didn't have a plan B, but now what's plan C or D? And so I get home, drop the kids off, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? So I call the Miller family, and I go over to see them. I sit down in their office. I said, look, the bank yanked on us. I know what to do. Well, there were 18 family members getting distributions out of the village. Okay? That's why every month they weren't paying for stuff because
family
you
money.
spend $50,000 on new flower pots, you make a distribution. Okay? And I think in the family's mind, they'd already been buying the new lake house, the boat, the world's sinking. And remember, they paid $5 million for it, right?
Yeah,
and
so it's a bit of real money.
Yeah, real money. And so they're like, well, what can we do? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, if you'll take an owner's note, like a first, let me go out and see if I can put the rest of it. So they agreed to take, it's either $60 or $80 million note for 3 years at 2%.
Wow.
They want to get this deal done. I mean, again, people don't realize we were going down so fast, the cliff. And so then I had to go, okay, I got to fill a gap between what I had, what I was willing to put in, and that loan. So I had about a $40 million gap. So I just started calling every buddy in town I thought might have money, Jerry Jones, Ross Perot, all the different ones, Harlan Crow. So I got two guys, Harlan Crow and another well-known billionaire in town. I won't say his name. And they both agreed to loan it to me at 15%. Okay. But with a 2-year lockout. So I was like, that's kind of expensive, but I want to get the deal done. And I got such cheap first lien debt, I could get it done. So I went down and
I got three pieces at this point. You've got your equity, you've got the bridge from the two new ones,
and I need a mezz
you got
piece.
The seller.
I need a mezz
and then I
piece.
was going to get to
and everyone in town was like, okay, we want Ray to blow up in 2 years and wipe out his $40 million, and we got the center, right? I got it. I got what's going on. So anyway, all of a sudden, I got these guys negotiating with each other. Anyway, I got Harlan went down to 12%, and on the phone I said, Harlan, you got my word. It's your deal. Okay? And he goes, okay. That's great. And I got real relieved. I'm driving back to the office. I went to the Texaco station on Monticello and was filling up my car, standing there. My phone rings, and it's this other billionaire in town. And he goes, hey, where are we on this deal? I go, well, you're at 15%. He goes, I've got someone else doing it at 12. He goes, well, I'll do it for 10. And I said, you know what? I just gave somebody my word. I'm going to do it with them. Yeah. He goes, well, have you signed anything? No. You shook his hand? I go, no, but I told him I was going to do the deal. He goes, but I'll do it for 10. I said, nope. And I hung up, and I've done a lot more business with him in the future. And because I honored you. I mean, but
absolutely.
But what's interesting about Dallas, it's a very small town. And once you stray out of the fairway and you do something that people might perceive as unethical or immoral or just not straight up as a old West handshake, you're off the island. Now, you might be able to do it in New York City, but you ain't doing it here. Right. And so anyway, so then I closed it May 20th of 2009. Immediately went into a renovation plan because I knew what had happened was no money. So the first thing I did the day we closed is I went out and I bought all the awnings were torn or had bird droppings on it. The windows were all dirty. And I asked the property manager the day before we closed, I go, why is everything so dirty? And they said, because the shopkeeper's responsible for their storefront. So I was like, not anymore. I went to Home Depot at night, bought 2 power washers, went out at 5 a.m, cleaned every window, every awning. Remember, I own a lawn mowing business, right? A landscape business. Cleaned everything. The next morning, all the shopkeepers shown up. Everything was sparkling new, fresh flower. They knew a new sheriff was in town, and it's just been great since then.
Okay, but you left out a piece. I mean, you looked at that, saw the tenant mix and the rents. You talked about that, but the tenant mix. But you really saw the potential for a very different tenant mix. And in fact, most of your effort was directed at shifting the tenant mix substantially in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, well, there was a Tom Thumb in there that had been there since 1935, okay? Took a lot of space. It was still being run like it was a little neighborhood shopping center. And Dallas at the time was probably 5-6 million people. I had a few retailers in there like Hermes and Chanel that were doing big business. And then you just had a bunch of doggy tenants in between, Banana Republic, Gap Kids. I mean, it's like, who wants those? Again, my philosophy was different. We invested into the tenants, into the space, into the common areas. Previous ownership didn't because they needed distributions, okay? So I tell people, we've owned it 16 years. It really took me 10, 12 years to become an overnight success. Because if you're a public REIT or someone, you need an immediate return on your investment for your partners. Well, since it was just our family that owned it, I could wait. We didn't take a dime out for 7 or 8 years because everything went back into the center. Because I didn't need the distributions, fortunately, and so we had to replace everything.
Talk to us about that shift in tenant mix. I mean,
what happened?
You look, it today is, I assume, one of the highest grossing.
It's the premier.
Oh, yeah. So we got on a plane, flew to New York, started to meet with tenants. My brother-in-law, Stephen Summers, totally devoted his life to understanding the luxury game in Paris and Milan. He's just done a spectacular job getting to know these tenants, their management. But most of the high-end retailers are family-run businesses. They don't want to be in a public REITs mall or something. They want to deal with other families. Even Ralph Lauren, public company, David Lauren, Ralph, that's who you call to make the decisions. You know, when you're dealing with Cucinelli or Laura Piana, you're dealing with the families. You're not dealing with, some corporate VP. So one thing we did is the original, when we bought it, the average rent was $36. Remember, it was $4 back in 76. It's $36. So we went and we thought, well, let's test the waters at like $50. So the first tenant took it, and let's go a little bit higher and higher. Then we got to $100 a foot. All of a sudden we went from dealing with the vice president of real estate to the owner, to Ralph himself, or the Laura Piana family themselves. They're like, if they're trying to charge that much rent, then it's crazy. The last lease we did, which is one of the high-end brands, was $550 a foot with $50 triple net. So we're at basically $600 a foot gross now.
So what are the economics of that business today versus when you took it?
Well, the year we bought it, the Village did, I think, $82 million in sales gross. This year we'll do $700.
Wow.
We're on our path. I think we'll be at $1 billion in sales in the next 4 or 5 years. Now, how do we do that without adding square feet? Okay. We'll start with the building where Park House is. We have a private club on the 3rd floor. Well, you know the radio station KVIL? VIL stands for Village. It was in the Highland Park Village. That's where I got its call letters when it was started in the 30s or 40s. It had the top of the Park House building. Well, Brady Wood and John Scott came to us, said they want to do this private club like Soho House. So that space, the radio station was paying $18 a foot gross on 5,000 feet. We built out over the decks. Well, now with percentage rent and all, we're getting well over $1 million a year from them. So, I mean, that's a difference of about $75,000 a year to $1 million. Sales, they're $20 million or so versus a radio station, no sales. Okay, that's a tenant like where, I'm trying to think who I can tell. Well, let's say where Bistro 31 is, that was a Robert Talbot tie shop doing $800,000 a year. I mean, Alberto Lombardi does $12 million a year. Cartier, they're all these guys are massive, massive numbers. Same square footage. So we're at about $3,000 a square foot in sales. The year I bought it, it was about $300 a foot.
What would be average high-end per square foot across the nation?
1,000 probably.
Okay, 3 times.
So,
So we're turn it over. We'll go a different place.
Yeah.
But what's the next 10 years of Highland Park Village? What does it look like? As you said, you don't have a lot of room to build more.
Yeah. Well,
you've got the high-end tenants. You've got a great tenant list right now. Where can you go with it in the future?
Well, we're moving the Hermes store into the movie theater, and that'll be massive, massive sales on that. We're moving Beretta into Rag & Bone, which is next to Honor Bar. We're going to tear that building down and build a flagship Ralph Lauren store. That'd be one of their flagship stores, marquee stores in the whole country, probably one of their top 2 or 3 freestanding. And then Cartier, we're going to move onto the building that currently is next to the movie theater on the Point. So that'll create 2 kind of fortress boxes coming out off Douglas and Mockingbird.
Are there any tenants that you don't have that you want?
There are always people to look at. I've got to be careful because remember, I grew up in that neighborhood. And if I didn't live in there and somewhere else, I'd probably go all high end, not worry about it. But I do like Mi Casino where someone goes up there in a stroller and their kids are in shorts. And that's very important.
And Cafe Pacific's been there for how long?
Since 1980. Sport coats. So I don't want the national chains up there. Yeah. But I need to appeal to the local person. And so if you go between Mi Casino, go down that strip, it's pretty much, it's Lila Rose, Peepers, Dino's. Those are all locals.
Right.
And so you intersperse that. And that's the thing we hear from a lot of international travelers. They go, we go to Rodeo Drive, we go to Worth Avenue, it has these same, but you have a cobbler in the middle of all this. You've got St. Michael's Women's Exchange. But they love it because they like seeing a mom in her workout clothes pushing a stroller and a guy in a T-shirt and shorts walking his kids up to do so. So that's the chemistry we have. So running it is like I probably shouldn't say this on this show, but I want to be in a dictatorship, not a democracy. And Snyder Plaza is a democracy. There's not one national tenant in Snyder Plaza. Not one. Think about it. It's all mom and pops, okay? The city owns all the streets. Highland Park Village, I own all the streets. I can valet wherever I want. I can close stuff. I can stuff it. And so by doing that, I'm not putting a tattoo shop next to Chanel. So the high-end tenants, so I'm going to protect them, that I'm just going to merchandise it with other great tenants. If you look at Deep Ellum, I mean, what a war zone is that? Why? Because you don't have a dictatorship controlling the merchandising of it.
Yeah, you're right. And that's a fascinating comparison of Snyder Plaza versus Highland Park.
Same demographics.
I was going to say, same demographics, both ideal locations, et cetera, but have gone a different way.
Well, and their rents there are probably $50, $60. My rents are 10x what they are.
Okay. So
a mile away.
Restaurants.
Yep.
A lot of entrepreneurial move quickly.
Yeah.
Clearly Highland Park Village, a lot of creativity went into that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of all of the elements of real estate developer, et cetera. You're the chairman of Sunoco.
Sure.
Large, as I said, largest retailer, gasoline retailer in the nation. Where does that fit in with these three? How did you get involved with Sunoco?
Well, I'm chairman of the board. I'm not CEO.
I understand.
So there's professional management, obviously running the business.
Sure.
The way that came about is I was in D.C. I was the chairman CEO of a thing called the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. I was also on the board of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board.
Which is an appointment by the president and Senate confirmation.
Exactly. And so it's very important to be the Senate confirmation because for a lot of reasons. I traveled to 36 countries around the world. We did business in 180 countries around the world. I got very educated on the way the world economy works, okay? I was on the President's Intelligence Board. I got very educated on the way the intelligence community works and all those things. So when I left administration and came back to Dallas—
And give us the years on this. When was this?
17 through 21. Well, no, I went to summer of 21, I guess it was. But so I came back to Dallas, and our family's in the oil and gas business and stuff, but that really had nothing to do with Sunoco. So Kelsey Warren, who is the controlling shareholder of Energy Transfer, big pipeline business, asked me to go on the board of Energy Transfer, and Rick Perry. So the two of us go on the board of Energy Transfer. After about a year, Sunoco, which was founded in 1885, one of the old Sun Oil and Gas, Energy Transfer bought control of it, moved it to Dallas from Philadelphia. They were trying to figure a direction to go because it's so large in the United States, it's hard to really expand and grow here because, as you said, we're really a massive logistics business. We pick up refined product. We don't refine it. So we pick it up to the refinery, either put it in pipelines or trucks. We distribute to big terminaling complexes and then from there to stations.
So you're really the wholesaler, the retailer.
Yeah.
Well, we got stations too, but
but that's a retail.
Yeah, we're kind of the last mile before you get to the station. Like the station up here at Northwest Highway and Preston, that's one of our stations. Yep. So anyway, and it's an MLP, Master Limited Partnership. And so it's very, very liquid and very, extreme cash flow because we're not affected by oil prices going up or down. We're affected by consumer buying because we make about 12.3 cents a gallon. So the more someone drives, we make 12.3, whether it's $5 a gallon or $2 a gallon. You follow me? And so we're trying to push as much gas out. So one time I'm talking to Kelsey, I was like, look, there's so much opportunity in these foreign countries because with all, climate change and all that stuff, all these other countries they're all running from fossil fuels. So we came up with a strategy and we bought the biggest distributor in Puerto Rico, which now gives us access to the Caribbean. We're now the largest distributor in Ireland. We went to the Netherlands, bought the biggest distributor. I'm talking very low multiples because these people are running away from it. So in Rotterdam, and then we're the largest now in Germany. And so the idea is, how do we expand in these countries? Because if you can buy at a very low multiple and we're trading a higher multiple, obviously it's a big trade. And we can sell in dollars too because we're selling refined product from the United States. What's happened in in Europe especially, all the refineries are getting shut down by the governments. And so if you can control, and the governments control all the pipelines in these countries, they're called the midstream, but if you can control the terminals and the distribution point, that's the key. And so now we can take from refineries, in Texas or whatever and distribute there, and then it can be distributed out into their gasoline. And look, we're about, I think 20% of our sales is diesel. Okay. You cannot drive an 18-wheeler on anything but diesel, okay? They're not going electric. How big a battery pack would be for that. And they're not going on. So diesel sales in Europe, even though they're all this green talk, they're 18-wheelers in Europe. They can have all electric vehicles they want, but they're not having them in their big distribution trucks. So I'm on there more strategically thinking out kind of helping them think that.
Okay, but then go out.
Last thing, and then we're about to close on a big transaction in Canada. $9 billion will be the largest distributor in Western Canada,
Alberta,
called Parkland. Yeah, yes. And then it's the largest distributor in all the islands throughout the Caribbean. So basically taking that Puerto Rico distributing, imagine a smile around Cuba. We'll have all the islands and be the pretty much exclusive distributor to gas. Not that they're big markets, because these are small islands, but when you're king, right?
But your business is dependent on volume, that people continue to buy gas. So let's step back. You had a Washington environment, plus you got the business environment. Give us your perspective. When you look back over the course of the last 20 years, clearly the period of 20 to 24, 21 to 24, we made enormous investments and shifted an awful lot towards, quote, renewable energy. What's your thought on that? And then where do you see the fossil fuels, you used that word a moment ago, going in the next 20 or 30 years? Because Sunoco's, that's their business.
Sure. Well, I mean, look at EV sales in the last year. I mean, they're declining, okay? Hertz spent $1 billion, Hertz Rent-A-Car, to buy a whole fleet. No one would rent them, because you're going to the Boston airport and I'm driving, 3 hours. I don't know where I'm going to charge it up. Right. They took almost 100% write-off on that because no one would drive EVs. I mean, would you want to rent an EV car? No. You don't know. You check in the hotel. We don't have EV charging station. So I don't see that as a threat in a short term at all. As far as natural gas, all these data centers are being built. Where are they putting them now? They're putting them right on top of natural gas pipelines. That's why Energy Transfer stock has had a great year, because we move so much natural gas. They have to do it. We'll get back to EVs. They're powered by what? Electricity. What powers electrical power plants? Natural gas. And you have to have a baseline. If you have another huge freeze and the wind stops blowing and the sun's not out, you have to have a baseline of energy. You can go to 100% renewables, but if you don't have a baseline, you can't do it.
So how did we do that as a nation and as a world? Fall into this enormous investment in renewables, which worked because it was subsidized by the government, not necessarily by its own. And we kind of convinced ourselves that we've got to get rid of all the fossil fuels in the United States as a matter of energy policy.
Convince ourselves. You act like everyone agreed with that. No. You had a small elitist group that academically would get up on a grease board and say, oh, isn't this great? Oh, how about you, Kennedys? We're going to put some windmills off Nantucket, off your house on Hyannis. And they went crazy on that. Not in my neighborhood, right? And so a lot of it was just a lot of people talking about stuff. But the reality, look, we're in capitalism. The marketplace will dictate where things go. When those things make economic sense, they'll go forward. I mean, windmills, these things last 10, 12 years. I mean, no one said what happens when these things pass their useful life. Who's going to tear them down?
Or the environmental cost of them, or the cost, and you got into it there. Once you start having to get rid of these things, the environmental and the energy cost to do that. I mean, there's big numbers on the front end, back end that usually aren't counted.
And how about the transmission lines? I was pheasant hunting in South Dakota last, February. We're driving along. These huge windmills everywhere, transmission line. The farmers hate it. It's killing all the birds. Yeah. They had these beautiful vistas. Now they're looking at all the wires going everywhere. Natural gas is in a pipeline under the ground. You don't see it. You don't smell it. It's the safest thing you can have.
So is our best national defense as a nation a free and open energy market?
Oh, absolutely.
And where do you see the energy market 2035, 10 years from now? What's it going to be?
I don't think it's much different than it looks now.
Think it expands on the crude oil?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the lifting costs of a barrel, okay, right now, oil is trading about $60 a barrel. Really, people are making as much money at that as they were at 70. Why? AI has made a huge difference to drill. I mean, if you look at the cost of a crew, I mean, you need just fraction of what you used to have. And with horizontal drilling, you can do so much more with one rig that it used to take maybe 10 rigs to do. So I just think technology, the more and more it's going to get in, it's just going to make it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So prices can stay down because the lifting cost, is going to go down as the cost of technology brings it down.
Actually, your productivity in rigs most of that came before AI.
Yeah.
We'll see what the new factor is going to be using AI.
Yeah, the efficiency of AI now, like Palantir is big in the energy space now. And what they have is, they know when a valve's going to break or, all the technical stuff that used to have people on site to do, it can all be done.
Okay, so Ray, step back. Involved in a lot of different businesses.
Yeah.
You led a significant effort on the U.S. government's part to look at investment in all these other countries,
Sure.
et cetera. Talk a little bit about how you see the United States relative to Europe and China in the next 5 and 10 years, because China's still making big investments and really have captured, for the most part, the renewables manufacturing side of it. All the fins, all the batteries, the solar panels, those sorts of things. That's really become a Chinese competitive advantage. Europe has moved away from anything associated with the fossil fuels. Some indications are coming back now. So what does that mean for our relative position in the U.S. economy going forward?
From an energy perspective?
No, from just an economy standpoint. Clearly, energy is a big part of it, though.
When I was at OPIC, I traveled, like I said, all over the world, and I went to, the garden spots like Botswana and, Vietnam and Bolivia. I mean, I'm not in those, high-end countries. And the Chinese are all in there building roads and all inferior construction, indebting all these third world countries incredible debt. How are they going to pay them back? Well, China's trying to grab their rare earths and things like that from these countries, but China is so over their skis. I mean, that country physically, I don't know how they survive. All this stuff you're talking about with renewables, none of that makes any economic sense, whatever. So the state is taking on greater and greater debt. So China is really an economic time bomb to happen. I saw it everywhere, all over Africa. As far as Europe goes, as far as their energy policy goes, I mean, we can supply them. Nigeria, Guam. I mean, there's so many new discoveries coming in, and they can say all they want, but believe me, they have a cold winter in Paris. It's because they don't have solar panels because there's no sun. They're going back to gas.
Okay, I want to go from international to real estate and local in Dallas.
Okay.
So you've been buying up land in downtown Dallas. Talk to us about kind of the opportunity that you see and also why you're so excited about being in downtown Dallas.
Well, you need to talk to my therapist about this. But look, no, really, I'm a lifelong Dallas person. I love downtown Dallas. I know every inch of downtown Dallas since I was a little kid. I can walk you down any block, give you the whole historical deal. So I'm probably not the right one to be buying this stuff because I'm too emotional about it. And I had an opportunity when I came back from D.C. to buy the Dallas Morning News headquarters. I had no plan for it. Okay, what was Patton's famous line? Not having a plan isn't a plan. But what I knew, I got great value buying it. And our convention center was so old, I figured something at some point was going to happen with it. And sure enough, during COVID, they decided to build a new convention center. So I'm like, okay. And so the Morning News site, if people know it, it's the Rocket Truth building next to the Omni Hotel. I'm going to do a 1,000-room hotel to go next to the Omni. And so I've got to deal with the hotel business. I'm not at liberty to say right here what it is, but we're going to build a 1,000-room because the new convention center is 3,000 to 4,000 rooms short.
And the Omni's 1,000 rooms, so you'll be parallel right now.
1,001. 1,000. You got to be 1,000 rooms to be considered a convention hotel. So they added one more to be sure. And Mayor Leopard led that charge, and believe me, that was one of the great economic things to happen to lift the city downtown. Was that? But we need a lot more rooms than just that one. And the problem is, it's an island unto itself. Okay, so I bought the Morning News 6 years ago. So once again, it's taken me years to become an overnight success on that deal. Convention Center didn't open to 2031. So I can't even start construction on this building until probably 27. So I'm sitting around for a couple more years on that. Then I had the opportunity to buy Founders Square, which is a 300,000-foot historical building nearby. I thought that could be, if you go in it, it's a cool building. It could be a potential conversion to hotel or apartments. It's actually about 70-80% leased because so many of the small tenants are bailing out of the big buildings. I'm kind of capturing them in a small community right there. So that's kind of a wait and see how the convention center ends up. Then the worst thing in all of downtown Dallas is the Greyhound station. It is probably the highest crime in the city other than probably one of the DART stations. I want to get rid of it, so I went to Greyhound, and they were disposing of a lot of their properties, and I bought that about a year ago. Their lease is up. Today's October 6th. I think their lease is up October 20th. Or no, the end of the month. They're moving out October 20th. Getting rid of that Greyhound, the bad crowd that thing attracts.
Mm-hmm.
And when a bus pulls in, you got people recruiting people getting off the bus, because that's where the bus comes from, Huntsville. And you just look outside that deal. It's unbelievable why the police just don't sit and watch us. But all that crowd will be gone in 3 weeks. And that's going to help clean up that part of downtown. Since then, Dallas College has come out and they want to build $1 billion. They've already raised the money, 800,000 foot downtown campus. And so I made a pitch to them to take my Founders Square building, Greyhound, and the 2 parking lots next to me, build a new campus, take their old campus and keep the historical piece of it, tear the rest of it down, and do student housing, schooling. It's probably got to be the only college in America that doesn't have a Starbucks or a bookstore. I mean, it's sad. It's really sad. But it could be a world-class campus. And when Amazon was looking at Dallas, they're like, where's your educational stuff for downtown? We didn't have it. And so that's why I'm buying it. I think there's something there. And as was in the newspaper on Sunday, the Mavericks are looking at tearing down Dallas City Hall and putting a new arena there. So am I somehow in the middle of this momentum play as a momentum investor? It could be. But a lot of things have got to happen. If we can get the convention center finished, Dallas College, the Mavericks, you add all that up, that's almost $10 billion of development.
So what has to happen? Ray, you and I have had a number of different conversations. You're very opinionated for good reason on kind of what the strategy or the vision should be for downtown. Share a little bit more of that, not just on your property, but what has to happen to downtown to be successful?
Well, first of all, Comerica got announced they're getting bought out tomorrow. That's probably a goner for downtown. AT&T.
That'll be a big challenge.
AT&T. Hopefully they stay, but go on the assumption they don't. I mean, they leave. If I was mayor for a day, it'd be like I would focus all energies on the residential downtown, so much so I'd have police walking up and down the street every 5 minutes. I mean, there needs to be a massive, because that AT&T campus will probably become housing. Comerica, so you can get 30, 40,000 people living in the core, but don't pretend that you're going to try to get office tenants back down there. They're not coming back to downtown Dallas. I don't care it's just not happening. But make it a great residential area. South side of town, called South of Young Street. If they get rid of City Hall, they could drop in the arena there. They could drop in a whole entertainment district between there. I mean, we have 70 acres of land between what they're tearing down on the convention center and the Dallas City Hall site. You could have one of the most unbelievable redevelopment sites.
Yeah, you can go from there all the way down and pick up Lamar too.
And go all the way down to Lamar, all the way down to my sites. But I would take then Young Street, I would turn it into a boulevard. It goes from the farmer's market right now at Irvay. It turns into a little 2-lane, horrible street. I'd widen it up to where you'd have one end, you'd have the farmer's market. You'd have a grand boulevard down to Union Station in that end, a 2-lane, and have just a grand downtown boulevard, and then go up Griffin and Field Street and turn that into a grand boulevard. Grand boulevard being trees, landscaping, bike lanes. I mean, really turn into something to where downtown right now is an east-west town. It's not a north-south. We don't have a great north-south connector. Then that becomes a connector down into the Cedars. The Cedars will take care of itself. I mean, it's kind of a cool neighborhood.
Great price points.
Great price points. It's already become residential. You don't have to really do anything there other than give it the momentum of what would happen around this entertainment district. But what's going to cause a guy in Frisco, Rockwall on a nice Sunday afternoon to go to downtown Dallas? It has to be of scale. You can't create another Victory, which is a failure to me. I think the Star, where I have a Mika scene up there, it's tough. I mean, it wasn't well urban planned, but it wins because the Cowboys are there. But great urban planning in downtown Dallas, like the Pearl District down in San Antonio, if anyone's been there, it's incredible. The Stockyards in Fort Worth, incredible. Create the authentic Dallas experience. And that's not a bunch of reflective glass and concrete. But I don't know how to describe it, but we need an authentic Dallas experience. If you think a visitor comes to Dallas, where do you take them? The 6th floor, maybe Highland Park Village, Katie Trail Ice House, but really in Fort Worth, Stockyards.
Absolutely.
San Antonio, you're going to the Riverwalk or the Pearl District. Yeah. In Dallas, nowhere. Well, we can create that. We got enough acreage, and the city already owns it now.
So what's the hurdle? What's the issue?
We need a mayor. I mean, we need someone who shows up at the table with a vision and the understanding of how to get it done and can assemble the right players in place to make it happen. And the right players in place, if you look at downtown Dallas, the property owners around that is myself, Jack Matthews. That's it. Because you got the city, because the city hall, the city library, all that. That's basically it. I mean, you have a couple small, like the Aloft Hotel and a couple, but the major owners.
Which is actually a great situation. You don't have a lot of different owners.
No.
You have owners that have shown you, as well as Jack,
we're passionate about making this happen.
Interest in doing the right thing in addition to being successful financially. So it's
but the right thing, Tom, is like, so most cities you go into, let's say Washington, D.C., they put their arena right in downtown. I get back to my dictatorship versus democracy, right? If we can create a dictatorship down there where you have, Jack's property, mine, and that 75 acres with the arena as kind of a keystone, the problem with Victory, okay, you can call that a dictatorship. The problem is they took the American Airlines Center, which should have been built where the House of Blues is, to let people spill in to the West End and all that. Instead, since it's stuck at the other end, there's no interconnectivity with downtown. And the streets don't make sense. And it's too vertical and just so many things wrong with it. But if you did the arena right in downtown Dallas to where you live in an apartment, the Kirby building, and you walk 3 blocks up to go to a game, and it's a fun walk. It's exciting and there's action going on.
It's safe.
You have to do it to where the tide lifts for all the surrounding property owners, from the people in the farmers market to the Cedars to everything else. But it has to have that one, quote, dictatorship in the middle that is sure you don't put in the tattoo parlors and all that.
Well, and it's going to take, and I certainly hope this doesn't happen, it's going to take the leadership to ensure AT&T stays there, because there ought to be at least a default move to stay there given the amount of money that they put in. So doing the right things to keep them there. The Comerica announcement, I think, is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
But, Comerica moved here from Detroit. So Cincinnati to Dallas, you at least put it in the into the equation. You start getting aggressive, giving the argument to Fifth Third of why it should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if they come here, they'll want a new headquarters. I mean, look, everyone's competing for talent. And so, Morgan Stanley is probably going to go next to Bank of America on Clyde Warren Park, the second tower there. So when they're recruiting people, Goldman Sachs and stuff, you can't be in a 1980s era building.
Right.
It takes
something new nice.
When you get to Woodall, it takes 4 stoplights to get to, and then you're spinning around a garage and then down. I mean, people just don't want to waste half their day going to and from the office. I mean, when you were at Turner, you were down in Bank America Plaza. You know how long it took you to get in and out of the office every day. I mean, that's what all that. So for King for a Day downtown, it would we got to go all in to make the Maverick deal happen. And then assemble a world-class understanding of create the sense of place that Dallas does not have.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And we have the opportunity there. We don't have the opportunity uptown. There's no land available. So only place we can possibly do it is there. If we lose this opportunity, as we were talking about earlier, I go, it's the greatest, the last election of all time, or this is the last opportunity we have for generations.
Critical time. It's critical time.
It's a generational. We don't have a Cowboy Stadium to go after anymore. We don't have a Rangers. This is it.
Okay, right. We've gone through all of your businesses. We talked a little bit about your background on the public side and that sort of thing. You're not 80 years old. You still got a lot of time ahead.
Yeah.
So what does it look like for Ray Washburne, given all of his businesses, for the next 10, 20 years?
Yeah. Well, I'll probably go back and serve in Washington again at some point. I'm not sure when, but at some point I'd like to do that again if the right opportunity. Why? Because I want to serve my country. Look, I get out of college in 1984. The military is downsizing. There was no expectation to go in the military. People that grew up in the 70s or 60s all went in the military. So we came out. I never got to really give back. Other than locally, churches and things like that here, I could give on a national basis.
But you've done that. You've been a very active participant at SMU.
I know, but I got Potomac flu.
You've got peace.
Once you get injected in it, it's when you're up there and you got a staff and cars and going to the White House for lunch every day. It's intoxicating. And because I felt like I really made change, and we did. I got a great crew and traveled around the world and made difference in 36 different countries, well, really 180 countries.
So what areas would you like to make a difference in?
Trying to make America, just the regulation, just cutting stuff down still, making it to where our country.
So more domestic than international, second stage.
Yeah, probably domestic. Yeah, probably domestic. I mean, I've got such interesting insight from the energy perspective, running businesses, real estate. I mean, it's I've got real estate projects around the country. So I travel. I'm on the road at least once a week. So it's funny, these politicians, when I served in D.C., you talk to people and like, they've never been in the middle of the country. I mean, they're kind of New York. A lot of the East Coast establishment is, and that's part of the problem. I think part of the interest in the whole Trump thing, people felt like they weren't heard for years.
Oh, absolutely.
And they didn't know what was happening in a St. Louis or a Kansas City or an Oklahoma City or a Memphis. But they didn't know.
But what's fascinating about that, and Kyle and I talked about that on a one-on-one we did, you've got that dissatisfaction, which I think is what propelled President Trump into the White House the first time and the second time. But interestingly enough, you've got the same thing happening in New York, that displeasure, but it'll take a very different result. E.g., a socialist is going to be mayor because, again, the young folks in New York are feeling the same things that those folks between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and in the core of Ohio feel, that they're being left out and they don't really have any hope going forward. So you see that half the country went to Trump. Now there's another part that's going to be going socialist. Balance that. How do you look at that? Do you think that's a fair comparison, first of all?
Well, I just think, in history, if you look back at what happens at certain points of our history, whether it's civil rights or, back in the 30s and stuff, I mean, we're at an inflection point right now with these kids. And even the Charlie Kirk deal, you look at church attendance has shot up since that. So, I mean, that's one group. You have another that's, as you said, the New York socialist deal. But, the Great Society taught us, you don't give someone a fish, you teach them how to fish. And so that guy might get elected, mayor of New York. It's going to be a fiasco when he tries to create free groceries, free transportation.
Bad margin business.
All these promises he's making that he's not going to be able to live up to, it's not going to end, well for him.
And you've been a leading fundraiser on the political scene. Headed up the Republican Finance Committee, raised over $200 million plus or minus.
Closer to 300, but yeah.
Closer to 300.
Who's counting?
Don't shortchange him.
But who's counting?
Yeah. How do you look at candidates today, and what are you looking for to invest in them?
Looking for candidates. Yeah. It's the career politicians is just such a turnoff to so many people. Well, what I did is...
But we still elect them.
Because other people won't run. I mean, I like the deal. Bob Folsom was mayor, came in 4 years, built Reunion Redevelopment, went back home. I went up to D.C., served 4 years, came back home to my business. We need people that serve and return to the community.
Page 256 of the Federalist Papers.
Yeah, exactly. And you asked in 20 years, if I end up just staying there, I go to D.C., I want to help Dallas as an urban, we're going to grow to 15 million people from 8. That's primarily the suburbs. You fly in, you look down, it's just grid streets, it's just sprawling. We actually have a pretty cool urban area here, Uptown, Turtle Creek, and things like that. So I would like to work on urban planning of that, how you stitch Oak Cliff into the equation, the Cedars. I mean, we have a lot. Loose Sterrett needs to be moved and rebuilt in the proper type thing. I mean, there's
starting to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, they've already got a site picked out in East Dallas so there are a lot of major things for my grandkids that can happen now that if someone isn't pushing it, but you have to do you can't, what happened in the 80s here, they took the Federal Reserve out of the heart of downtown, put on the periphery. They took the jail, put on the periphery. Took American Airlines, put on the periphery. There's just no concentration of the core and how it all fits in together. And so, and no one's really talking about it or thinking about it. And so, I'm fortunate I got enough of a pulpit because I put my money where my mouth is.
Believe in it.
Buying that Greyhound station, again, I had no plan for that other than just to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And people are like, you spent millions of dollars buying that. Why? I go, it was the right thing to do because I could do it.
One of the best things for the community, absolutely.
It's because I could do it. And so as you go south, we need to put a top on I-30. There's just so many things. And then the big complaint down in South, like Wilmer.
So how do you do it? Ray, you've done a great job of kind of articulating what should change downtown.
Yeah.
How do we get it done? How does it actually come about? What are the steps you want to go through, others, et cetera, to get that?
Well, first, a vision has got to be articulated by really the mayor. I mean, if you go to any planning sessions like Dallas Citizens Council, or you got the chamber, and everyone's kind of, okay, but no one's like rolling up their sleeves and going down there.
It's disappointing. I agree with you.
And just saying, okay, this is what has to happen. This is how this needs to happen. And it's like manana. Now, I think Kim Tolbert's doing an excellent job as city manager. I like her a lot. But she's rudderless from getting vision. Now you go jobs in South Dallas. Because I'm very involved with SM Wright's church and some of the other churches in South Dallas and helping there. And it's like, where are the jobs? Well, someone's got to go sit down with all the major corporations and say, you've got to give us some jobs down here in South Dallas. I don't know what they are and I don't know how, but other than warehouses in Wilmer and Hutchins, and I mean, all that's going on down there. I mean, the growth, anybody hadn't been to the inland port that's happening down there, it's unbelievable. How do we transport the people from the inner city like MLK and down there?
Mm-hmm.
DART doesn't really have a transportation network to get them to where the jobs are needed. We finance at OPIC in Johannesburg a minibus system to get people from the inner city of Johannesburg. This U.S. government finances. I think a company had like 200 buses. Pick them up every morning, take them out to the jobs because they have no mass transit system there. And bus them back. We need a system like that in South Dallas to get the people because they don't have a way to get to the jobs. The jobs are there. And so this gross south philosophy, some of the prettiest neighborhoods in the whole city are Keys Park,
Kessler Park.
Park.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Spectacular neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
And so it's not
Bishop Arts.
The city really is. Dallas is a bunch of beautiful neighborhoods, whether it's Lakewood or Forest Hills or up in North Dallas. It's a beautiful neighborhood. It's all supported by what? Property taxes. If we don't bring property taxes and sales tax back into the heart of the city, everyone's property taxes go up. And
it's why you have to have that success in South so that you take some of that burden off of the other places
100%.
Yeah.
And that's why people in North Dallas should be concerned with South Dallas doing well.
100%.
No question about it. I articulated that, and I think people are starting to understand that. So what's the legacy for Ray Washburne? 20 years from now, look back, what do you want to be known for? Which kind of inherent in that question is, tell me about what you think the biggest successes you've had, and where are the ones that—
You're talking about professionally?
No.
Yeah.
Ray Washburne.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to answer that. You get the old, I want to be a great father and husband, which of course we all do.
And next.
And, I hope my faith leads me to do the right thing in the community that can help my community lift up. And I can drop a pebble in the ocean by going to work in New York, in DC. I can drop a boulder in the ocean by staying here in Dallas and helping out. So I think God's equipped me with a lot of tools and historical knowledge that can help this city become something. Because I'm scared this city's going to become a city of 15 million people in 20 years. That's just a sprawled out, nothing city that's got multiple edge cities around it. But the core here and the historical value, I mean, we're going to lose.
When we started out, Kyle, I told you we were going to visit with somebody that was multifaceted. We've seen all of those different pieces. On top of that, I think you've seen somebody that is committed to the community and committed to the nation, and someone who is insightful and thoughtful in the process.
Right. Thanks for being here.
Sure. Thank you for having me.